our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. I'm Rabia. The Central Bank of Egypt CBE Governor Hassan Abdullah and Deputy Governor Rami Abu Naga participated in the high-level African and South Korean representatives are attending the conference to discuss the issues of transitioning to low-carbon energy and achieving food security in the African continent.
The 7th Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation (COAFEC) conference in South Korea is organized by the South Korean Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Korea Export-Import Bank in cooperation with the African Development Bank (AFDB). Under the title Towards a Sustainable Future, Just Energy Transition and Agricultural Transformation in Africa, 500 senior government officials from South Korea and a large number of African countries attended the conference. Attendees included governors of member states of the African Development Bank Group and executive directors, as well as a group of African ambassadors, heads of African financial institutions, representatives of the private sector, civil society organizations, and academics. The CBE governor attended roundtables and discussions centered on two priority subjects with a large number of African countries' central bank governors. Discussions centered on the just transition to clean energy in Africa, where the challenges facing the country were addressed, including green growth in Africa and the mechanisms required, that's to say, agricultural transformation in the African continent, where Abdullah expressed his views regarding Korean-African cooperation in the agricultural transformation field. Abdullah and Deputy Governor Abu Naga also met with Ri Chang-yong, the governor of the Central Bank of South Korea, Bank of Korea, and his deputy governor Min Jwa-hong to discuss areas of joint cooperation, particularly strengthening financial ties between the two countries. The Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation (COAFEC) was established in 2006 at the initiative of South Korea to contribute to the African development agenda. In the same year, the first ministerial conference was launched to enhance consultation between Korean and African government officials. Since then, the conference has developed into a regular gathering held every 2 years.
To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Bayoumi, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, how do you see the level of cooperation between Africa and South Korea?
It is almost at the beginning. Let me be frank to you. Africa was neglected all the time because Europe was dominating the whole economy of Africa.
Yes.
And you cannot import or export to Africa without dealing with a European country. This is my experience in Africa. Lately, Africa is trying to find new partners. So we have now China, we have Korea, we have Japan, and we are inviting those rich countries to come and invest in Africa with our experience, which is much more stronger than others and cheaper. And we are in the beginning of a long process. I hope that it will take its place under the sun. But really, Africa is not, up till now, it's not in a very good position, I can say.
How important is it for Africa to open up to economic ties with new partners, Mr. Ambassador?
Because Africa is unfair, is in an unfair position.
Yeah.
The flow of money going out of Africa to the rich countries is much more than it receives from those countries. Why? Because it's paying its debts and it's paying its invoice of imports much more than it receives that of investment or as a result of its exports. So this is a formula which we have to change, otherwise it cannot continue all the time like this.
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, why, in your opinion, is South Africa placing weight to ties with Africa at that particular timing?
That is history because, as you will know, Europe was occupying most of the African countries,
Yeah.
whether it is France on the west, England on the east, Italy somewhere, Germany. No, every European country has enjoyed part of Africa.
Yeah.
And during the 60s, Africa did its all efforts in order to be independent, but still they reached their political independence, but not the economic independence. It totally depends on the economies and the companies of the European countries.
Yeah. Actually, sir, the 7th Korean African Economic Cooperation Conference is being held under the title Towards a Sustainable Future, Just Energy Transition and Agriculture Transformation in Africa. Why these specific domains in particular, Mr. Ambassador?
We are knocking all the doors as a matter of fact, but sometimes you are concentrating on one sector, another time you are concentrating on another sector and so on.
Yeah.
So there isn't one preferential sector, but we are knocking all the doors. Sometimes we concentrate here and there. We need more agriculture, we need more industry, and services are deteriorated in Africa. We need to make it much better than it is now.
Yeah. How would you describe Africa's needs for energy transition, Mr. Ambassador?
Now we are building many dams in Africa and we are producing electricity. Egypt is doing its efforts in Tanzania with the Julius Nyerere Dam.
Yeah.
We are trying to encourage our neighbors of Ethiopia to behave a little bit because we can help them selling their electricity and we can be the door for this electricity to go to Europe and other countries because, as you will know, we started now to export our electricity up till Beirut and Damascus, up till Athens in Greece, and then it will be supplying Europe with this energy.
Yeah.
So Africa still doing its best, but not enough, and we need much more effort in this concern.
Yes. Sir, how would green growth and transition to clean energy impact the African economy?
This is a good point, and Africa has one of the largest forests in the world, and it produces much more oxygen than nitrogen, opposite of the case in Europe or China or the Americas. So we are asking to continue this, and we hosted the Environment Conference, COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Yeah.
Now it will take place in the Emirates.
Yeah.
So it is another target which we want to cover and to do our efforts in order to enjoy clean air and clean environment.
The issue of reaching food security in Africa, how that could be achieved with all the challenges that the whole world is facing, Ambassador Bayoumi?
It is very important, and we have a secret here I want to share it with you. As a matter of fact, Europe and the United States will not help us seriously to produce our foods. Why? Because they produce much more than they need, and they need to export it to us.
Yeah.
So I want to recall the case during the First World War where United States were throwing some cereals in the ocean because it has no way to store it, and it's much more than the market would need.
Yeah.
This is the case. So when we talk about food security in Africa and food security in the Arab world, I don't think that we shall be receiving a serious help from the rich countries.
Indeed. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, always a pleasure to listen to your precious input.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. And the UNHCR and its teams in Libya are scaling up operations to respond to fast-growing needs of thousands of internally displaced people, refugees, and others affected by the devastating floods caused by Storm Daniel.
Storm Daniel hit eastern Libya hard on Sunday, 10th of September, leaving thousands dead, many more missing, destroying buildings, uprooting people from their homes, and submerging hospitals, schools, and essential infrastructure. The unprecedented flooding has resulted in at least 3,958 confirmed deaths as of the 16th of September, according to the World Health Organization, and thousands more are still missing. These figures are expected to continue rising in the coming days and weeks as search and rescue crews work tirelessly to find survivors and victims. UNHCR teams in the country are working closely with national and international partners, including LibAid, as part of a joint UN response to address the humanitarian needs and ensure timely assistance. UNHCR leads UN coordination for shelter, non-food items, and protection. Emergency relief items have already been distributed to affected populations in Derna and Benghazi. An airlift carrying 53 metric tons of humanitarian supplies from one of UNHCR's biggest stockpiles in the world, located in Dubai, the UAE, landed in Benina airport near Benghazi. Approximately 50,000 refugees and asylum seekers are registered with the UNHCR in Libya, including over 1,000 living in the affected areas prior to the floods. Additionally, some 46,000 internally displaced people, IDPs, were hosted in eastern Libya before the floods, including 2,800 in Derna. The disaster has triggered new displacements, including for many who were displaced before. An estimated 30,000 people are now displaced in Derna alone.
An explosive-laden vehicle detonated Saturday at a security checkpoint in the center of the Somali city of Beledweyne, killing and wounding dozens of people there.
13 people were killed and 20 others wounded in central Somalia on Saturday. This came after a suicide bomber drove a truck packed with explosives towards a security checkpoint in the town of Beledweyne. Police said they have recovered the bodies of 13 people, most of them civilians, who stayed nearby. They said around 20 wounded people were already taken to hospitals. The number of casualties is expected to rise. The attack, which damaged nearby buildings, trapping people under the debris, came after Somalia's government admitted to suffering several significant setbacks in its fights against militants. The militants have waged an insurgency for over 15 years to overthrow the internationally backed government of Mogadishu. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for Saturday's bombing.
Well, with this, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of our program Africa Today. Till tomorrow with another cruise. Goodbye. Many thanks for watching.